Okay, I think we're live. As usual, please let me know if you have any kind of issues, if you can hear me or see me or not. That would be fantastic. I will give that a minute to kick in. Let me make sure everything is all right here. Looks okay. Looks okay to me. Yes, there's audio. Great. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Whoever bet against me just lost. I've been on time the last 4 or 5 weeks, actually. Haha. Maybe not that many. Maybe 3 weeks. So this is our live Q&A. We do this every week if you're not familiar with it. Basically, you guys just ask me questions, whatever you like, board game related or not, and I do my best to answer them. I don't promise to answer every single question, but I'll usually at least address every single question. You know how that goes. But I do make an effort. You'll have to bear with me as well. I'm wincing and moving very gingerly because of the way I slept. My back is like spasming. It hurts so bad. And my neck as well. The whole back area, stopping at my ass, fortunately, is in a great deal of pain. Primarily because I've had both of my dogs the entire week. I don't normally have Honeybee. She's somewhere sleeping. But I've got them both, and they both sleep in the bed with me, and they like to sleep on either side of me in different positions. And so I have to crook my body in weird contortionist positions. And I always wake up just feeling terrible. So should probably not do that then. But there you have it. So current channel news. So there's going to be a couple reviews today. I have the rest of the night off. So you'll see. I don't know. Should I tell you what the review is going to be? No, you'll see. You will see a couple reviews. And then I'm probably going to work on 1 or 2 previews, which you're not going to see right away. And most of you don't care. But that's what I'm going to be working on. And then the rest of the weekend, I'm hopefully going to have to myself. I'd like to go see the new Cloverfield movie, finally. I want to work on continuing to put together Kingdom Death, which helps the channel too, because once I finally get all the finishing touches on where I want Kingdom Death to be, as far as like sleeving it and all that stuff, I can actually film myself playing it, which I'll put on the channel. But that's still, I'm not dedicating a time to that, or setting a date for that. That's going to be a ways off. I want to kind of take my time with that, figure out how I want to do it, because there's a lot of inconveniences associated with that. But that's generally it. Other things, I said the last couple of weeks that I was looking for an artist again. It's sort of halted now. The original artist that I had in mind is hopefully going to come through for me now. But the art is still not present. I'm still waiting on that. I thought it would be done by now. So thanks for your patience on that. But hopefully it's coming soon. So let's get to the questions. Nick, I just purchased War of the Ring, and Star Wars Rebellion. Have you played either, and what did you think of them? I have not ever played War of the Ring, any edition of it, so I can't speak to that. I've heard it's very good. It's in like the top 20 of Board Game Geek for quite a while. Or at least it's been in the top 100 for a long time, so it's well regarded. And it's consistently been in like the top 5 thematic games. So, yeah, it's a very popular game. Star Wars Rebellion, however, okay, fine, I'll just tell you. I'm probably going to do the review of that tonight. So I'm not going to say anything about it, but you will know my opinion soon enough. I've played it with both 2 players and with 4 players, so there you have it. Hey Nick, would you consider doing a small weekly board game news segment? I could then unsub to the Dice Tower. Well, as much as I'd like to facilitate that, I don't think so. I have pondered that idea before, and in fact, when I first started my channel, if you go back way into the archives, you'll see a couple of weekly segments I was trying to do that didn't last very long, where I would go over some news type items as well as Kickstarter stuff. It's not something I love talking about the news, but I don't love talking about board gaming news that much. I still am in the mindset that much of talking about board gaming news and talking about Kickstarter news at this point is just free advertising to people, and people treat it as such. And consequently, even though I wanted my Kickstarter update to always be more of a news segment, well, I didn't really. I mean, it was an opinionated news segment, commentary, but it always turned into just advertising. And part of that was my fault because I wanted to highlight games I did a preview for. But the other thing was just that I would constantly get barraged with emails asking, hey, please feature our game. And I started to feel very, very cynical about it, which is not a good place to be. You know, you want to be passionate about the things that you do. That's the number one thing I thought about. I think about my channel in general is just be passionate, and it's what I tell people to do all the time when they ask me for advice. So when you're not passionate about something, it kind of loses its flavor. And the problem with any kind of board gaming news or Kickstarter news is that, and this is one of the reasons why I gobble up and love talking about controversies like the Asmodee thing, or like whenever there's something going on with media and reviewers, or anything, when their Kickstarter project goes horribly wrong. I love talking about that stuff, not because it's like, hey, look at the train wreck, although it's a little bit of that, but because that's interesting, and most of the time it's just advertising. So I think it's just not where I want it to be interested in it right now. There's not enough interesting stories going on. I was thinking maybe I'd start a separate channel just to talk about politics, but as if we need one more of those. But I'll tell you what, if you just want another source for news, there's so many other places. Eric Martin of Board Game Geek, his blog posts, while they're not like the sexiest things ever because there's no video, sometimes he does videos, but whatever, they're still the most informative, direct and to the point. He includes links. Follow them if you want. You don't need to get your news source from the Dice Tower if you don't want to. Trust me. Did Eldritch Horror kill Arkham Horror for you? Separate question now. Well, technically, but the problem is I never liked Arkham Horror. Arkham Horror was one of the very first games I ever received when I got into the hobby. It was actually a birthday present from my ex, I think, and we all hated it. Now, lest anyone, there might be one or two people out there who have actually watched or listened to the Dice Tower Showdown episode I did a long time ago, like 3 years ago now, where it was Arkham Horror versus Betrayal at House on the Hill, and I defended Arkham Horror. I was on the Arkham Horror side, and while I believe Betrayal at House on the Hill won the vote on Board Game Geek afterwards, it was because it was Betrayal at House on the Hill, which is immensely popular. We creamed them in that debate. I mean, our side totally decimated them, I think. I don't often brag about myself. I took these guys to the cleaners, as I often did in Dice Tower Showdown and whatever episode I was on. But I don't like Arkham Horror. That's the thing. You can debate. I mean, that's how they do it in high school debates, right? Someone's got to be on one side, someone's got to be on the other. It doesn't matter what you personally feel about it. You're just trying to debate on behalf of that thing. So that's the position that I took. And I had a lot of fun with it, but Arkham Horror is not a great game for me. In fact, I'm really disappointed in almost all of the games I've played from Richard Lanius. I have a lot of respect for the guy, and I've met the guy personally. He's incredibly nice, but I just don't like his games very much. And Arkham Horror is no exception to that. Eldritch Horror, I believe, took some of the best elements from Arkham Horror and made them far more interesting, spun them out into a better game altogether, while it still has the same feel at its core. All the actual gameplay, it's just so much better and simpler and easier and less confusing. So technically it killed it for me, but no, it exhumed the body and then chopped it into pieces and threw it back in the grave because it was already dead. It's really cruel. I didn't mean it to come out that way. Any plans for International Tabletop Day? Hopefully no. I mean, it comes on a Saturday. It's the 30th. It's probably the last Saturday of the month. And it's the same day as my normal game night, which is usually on. Tonight I just canceled it because I have too many other things going on. But yeah, I don't know. Last year it sucked. In fact, I'll make it, 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was 3. No, it was 2 years ago when I did it with my group for the first time, and we just did it ourselves, and we actually did a whole big, 30-person meetup at one of our group members' Taekwondo studio at the time. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't an official thing. There was no official promos or anything. So last year, I did it with the Dice Tower guys at Cool Stuff down here, where they actually did have official promos, and we had contests and raffles and all this different stuff. But it was just a shit show. I mean, it was just a normal gaming meetup. But then they had this whole raffle thing where people, including myself, I was like, I really want those promos. And you just get caught up in this garbage. And then you start to hear the back side of this, right? Behind the scenes, and how the Tabletop Day Committee, which is Geeks and Sundry. Geek and Sundry was charging an inordinate amount of money to all of these stores to participate, so that most stores weren't even able to do it. Cool Stuff is Cool Stuff, so they were able to do it. But like just a sick amount of money just to give them these promotional packages for their store. And some weird thing where like if you wanted your game to be featured for International Tabletop Day as like prizes, you would not only have to send, you as a publisher of course would have to send the copies to the Geek and Sundry, but then you also had to still pay a fee, and like you had to special make promo characters of like Will Wheaton and what's her name, Felicia Day, and it's just like, come on. I just hate that commercialization. It's so crass. Like, I don't normally complain about that stuff because obviously I'm a board game reviewer. Commercialization is keeping my channel alive, but still, that felt so wrong to me. So I'm more than happy to bow out of Tabletop Day until it feels like more of an actual grounded, fun thing and not just a promotional day. You know, that's me. Would games like Blood Rage, Kemet, etc. be better for you if they had dice combat? I don't think so. I think they would then feel like every other game out there. Dice, I have no problem with dice, and I have no problem with a certain degree of randomness in certain games, and that's fine. But one of the things I like about, let's say, Kemet in particular, especially Kemet, which I think having had more time with both games, I might even put Kemet above Blood Rage. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where that pans out next year. I'm not sure. But especially in Kemet, the card combat is so... It's not even like... It's not hugely complicated. It's very simple and straightforward, and I think that is to the game's benefit. And even in Blood Rage, the whole card system and even like the drafts in the beginning just feels interesting to me. And it's not like a huge, overwhelming part of the game. It doesn't overshadow all the other individual game elements, but it just adds something that normal dice rolling wouldn't, because so many other games use dice rolling. It just feels omnipresent and kind of hackneyed. So no, I'm fine with it like that. But I know some people don't like it. Some people don't like card combat as opposed to dice rolling and vice versa. Some people don't like the whole system that Runebound has with the tokens, although I thought that was interesting too. So what do I know? I'm going to turn the light off because I feel like I'm getting whitewashed in the... Let's see if that does something. It might be better. I think it's better. If it was me, I would want to watch a darker screen. So let's take a look. Yeah, probably better. Okay. Excuse me, my allergies are acting up. One of the dangers of doing this earlier in the day for me. I always have allergies closer to the beginning of the day. Is Empires of the Void worth tracking down, or should I just wait for the upcoming second edition? I feel like you should probably just wait for the upcoming second edition, because I don't know how much it's going for now, but I would assume the first edition is going for a few bucks. Let's see. Did you get involved in any April Fool's shenanigans? Who, me? Never. Do you have a favorite Weird Al song? It's funny. That's my friend and I were just talking about. We were playing Star Wars Rebellion last night, and my friend and I were talking about Weird Al because actually we were listening to Spotify, my Spotify list, and Jonathan Colton came up, and we were comparing him to Weird Al. And well, I made the comparison out of the blue that like, hey, one of the things I like about Jonathan Colton is that he's a lot more subtle with his songs, and most of them are better musically. And it's not quite as in your face as Weird Al. But sometimes that's to a fault. Like some of Jonathan Colton's songs are so just a little not subtle in a smart way necessarily, but so just like downplayed that they're just like, oh, what did I just listen to? Whereas some of his songs are amazing. But I like Weird Al a lot. I grew up on Weird Al. I mean, I had very few CDs because I wasn't really like into music like other teenagers were. But Weird Al CDs were the ones that I had, and I love them. And I was actually remarking to my friend. My friend is Ian, by the way, who has been on the channel a couple times. But Ian, when I was talking to him about it, I pointed out that he kind of disagreed with me, but my favorite Weird Al songs were the original ones. The ones that maybe were stylistically like other songs, but were his own lyrics and his own creation and his own idea and theme, rather than his parody songs. His parody songs, of course, were the ones that blew up and, were huge. But think back to like Weird Al's last album, which is the one where he was doing, he was releasing a video on YouTube every day for like a certain amount of time, however many tracks there were. And I think all of those songs, or most of them were, many of them were not parodies, and they were great. The one that's what's it called? I can't remember the name of it now, but the one that looks like the drawing, like that stupid business drawing program that uses all the corporate buzzwords. I love that. So I think he's shifting over to that more, and I appreciate that. So wow, that was way too long of an answer for a Weird Al question. But I didn't even answer your question. Do I have a favorite Weird Al song? My favorite one. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot. I like the Horoscope song a lot. The Good Old Days was one we were talking about last night. That's very good. What was the last game you played besides Kingdom Death Monster that felt really innovative to you? Well, if I can't answer that, I'm just not going to answer the question. No, I'm kidding. Well, Time Stories is the other obvious answer, right? I actually think that Time Stories is perhaps even more innovative than Kingdom Death Monster. I mean, I still love Kingdom Death Monster more because of what it is in so many different ways. But if you think about it, if you break Kingdom Death Monster down into its constituent parts, as a whole, it's an innovative thing because you take all these disparate elements, put them all together, and it works, and it tells a story in this narrative. But breaking it down, the combat feels like Descent D&D style combat. Yeah, you've got the AI cards, and that is unique, but it doesn't feel that tremendously different. The settlement phase, I've seen that. I saw it in Shadows of Brimstone. I've seen that before. But Time Stories, while you can just say, oh, it's a choose-your-own-adventure game, come on. What other game has really done that to that degree and had it work? It doesn't feel like anything else I've ever played. I mean, Time Stories, whether you love it or hate it, and that game is very polarizing, that's fine. I get it. I'm not going to try to change anyone's mind on that. Disposable board games. You have to say that it's incredibly innovative. And that's how I felt. And I think the reason why it's even more at the forefront of my mind is because of the last expansion I played and did a review for, which was the Prophecy of Dragons, which just was like, I was just expecting, okay, here's a generic fantasy one. Here's the one to keep all of the, the family-friendly people happy. And then it just like, whoosh, so much content in that mod without giving spoilers. So, is there a game that has mechanisms you detest, but you still like the game? Yeah, there's probably been games with bidding, because bidding is always the one I think about. I hate bidding. I really do. And but I think of like Ristorante Italia. That's got bidding in it, but I don't hate it. In fact, I love Ristorante Italia. It's a really great game. So did that make it on my top 100 list? It should. I think it did. I just don't think about it or talk about it very often though. But that's got bidding in it, and I hate bidding. And it's because with bidding, here's the deal. Like that cuts both ways, by the way. So like the Game of Thrones board game, like the big full board game from Fantasy Flight Games, would be a game I would love. But I think the thing I hate about it the most, that kills the game for me, aside from the length, is the bidding in that game, which is such a crippling thing if you lose. If you bid properly, if you bid correctly, if you have enough power to bid, you could run the board for the round. And if you don't, you're toast. And it's hard to come back from that. And it's hard to, and when other people have efficient power, when people don't lose a ton of power all at once and they can accumulate it, that just is like a compounding snowball thing. So I really hated that about Game of Thrones. Hello, Nick. Finally made it. Thoughts on Shadows of Brimstone? I think it's a good game. I did a review of the Swamps of Death, and thought it was good. I really like, just for maybe the same reasons as Kingdom Death, I really like the settlement phase in that one, the town phase, I think is just the proper name of it, where you go to town, you can go on other adventures. Well, actually, I think the newest expansion, which I haven't played, I'm probably not going to, it fleshes that out even more, which I think is a great idea. Although it makes the game even more long and epic, but still, yeah, there was a lot of stuff I liked about Shadows of Brimstone. What I didn't like about it was the miniatures, which not only having to put them together, which obviously I have to do that for other games, so I'm not hugely put off by it, but they weren't very good quality. And it was very tough to put them together compared to other games, even Kingdom Death. I thought like the cooperative gameplay also felt a little derivative, maybe a little too derivative, and the way that monsters behaved and came out on the board just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So ultimately what I ended up feeling about the game was that it was good, but there was no reason for me to hold on to it when I have other games that do it better. But if you like it, I don't blame you. Favorite character to play as in Pathfinder Adventure the card game? The Sorceress, whose name I'm forgetting because I'm terrible at remembering names. Is it Leah? The sort of, she's got like she's scantily clad in red and has got the white hair, dark skin. That's not the reason I like her, but she's just a really interesting character, and I love her spells and her powers, and I just think she's really good. So when I'm playing it solo, what I was doing with the base set was playing her and then the druid girl, as a sort of a healing thing. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate your hangover, Nick. I'm not hungover. I did have a few drinks last night, but it's hard for me to get hungover. Right now, I'm just benefiting, or I'm sorry, suffering, not benefiting, suffering from still a lack of sleep. I'll tell you my schedule the last few days. So Tuesday night, was it Tuesday night? Yeah, Tuesday night, I had 2 hours of sleep because I stayed up all night working on videos, right? 2 hours of sleep. Wednesday night, I got like 6.5 hours of sleep. Awesome. That's fantastic for me. It's still less than what you should be getting. Thursday night, because I stayed up all night and worked on my, let's say, April the 1st video, I got 2 hours of sleep. And then last night, even though I had the time to sleep in even more, I still only ended up getting maybe 6 hours. So I'm still suffering from that. And that has effectively the same effect as being hungover. You're bleary-eyed, you're tired, but very rarely am I truly hungover. Maybe once or twice I woke up with like a raging headache from drinking too much. I think that might have been the moonshine nights. Well, the first time I had moonshine, I screwed up. I had a little bit of moonshine. It was a gift from Ian. We had it, and we got a good buzz going on, and then the game night was over, but the night was still early. Everyone had to go, and I'm like, I'm going to stay up and watch Space Cop. And so I was like, I'll get a little more moonshine, and I overdid it, and I just fucked up, I'm sorry, my language, but just totally messed up my whole night. I was like puking my guts out, and it was just awful. I still have a little bit of that moonshine left. Maybe I'll have it tonight. Don't drink and drive, though, kids. Back to the beginning. Well, here's the question. Have you been sleeping better since we last saw you? Oh, yeah. And my friends are getting mad at me now. My friends Jill and Ian just chastised me completely. Like, what are you doing? Sleep, you idiot. Nick, who's your favorite Vocaloid, and why is Kagamine Rin the only correct choice? I know what Vocaloids are. I'm not into that. I'm sorry. Well, okay. I say this being a complete and utter hypocrite because just by chance it was the best looking Google Chrome art that there was. Let me see if there's a way I can actually show this to you. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. Will this work? Yeah, kind of. I don't know. You see the background of the window there? That's like a Vocaloid, but so I like the art style, but they're just like an advertising tool. Like I don't know that there's any story involved with them, right? Sorry, let me get back to my screen now. I love Level 7 Omega Protocol in the world that Privateer Press created. That said, after watching your review, I was wondering if you ever ended up playing Level 7 Escape. If so, thoughts? No. And what happened was, Level 7 Escape was one of the very first games I was really interested in getting when I wanted to build up my board game collection. Because on paper, the game sounds amazing, right? The theme is awesome of like this Area 51 type area where humans are being experimented on by an alien overlord, and you're like test subjects, and then you escape. And because something happens to the facility, so you have to escape, and it's semi-cooperative. And on paper, all of it sounds good, but so many reviews that I read were so down on the game, and even like the best reviews were like, okay, look, it's not perfect, but thematically it works, and if you do this, and this home rules or house rules, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay, I don't think I want to do that. Eventually, I ended up getting it in a trade, so I could have played it at any time, but it sat on my shelf for so long that I just got rid of it. So I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it's a great concept. What if they did a second edition of it and actually did it right? That would be amazing. Why isn't this video in Snoopavision? Well, if they had offered, I would have done it. By 2038, it will be. Looking to buy Mice and Mystics, were the expansions worth it? So yes, I played both. No. Wait a minute. I play tested the big expansion, the Downward Tales, but I didn't actually get the final version, did I? I never reviewed that, but I knew enough about it, and I never played Heart of Gorm. Gorm is the freaky baby monster from Kingdom of Death. So what I'll say is that if you love Mice and Mystics, if you played the base game and you love it, like it, then yes, because Downward Tales at least was just more scenarios, more characters. It had the lizard character, which I thought was great, which was by default my favorite character, the gecko. And it had other ones too, the shrew. So yeah, for that reason alone, I think it's worth it. That game has sort of fallen by the wayside, and I don't think it's like, I think it's still selling well, and I think people still critically like it, but you don't hear about it very often. And that's sad, because I think that it's a good game. It just wasn't quite for me. For me, it was just like, okay, I have so many dungeon crawling or scenario-driven one versus all games. No, that was a fully cooperative. That was a point in its favor, actually. But I have so many games like Mice and Mystics, and I just felt that was a little bit too basic. But I think it's a very good game, and I think that if you do like it, then yeah, the expansions are very necessary eventually. I don't understand your question. What's a good game to play with stupid people that has interesting choices? I like how this question started. What's a good game to play with stupid people that has interesting choices and strategy, but the stupid person will not get discouraged because the stupid person wins often enough? That's a very broad question. That's way too broad. So a game that is interesting, but the other person will win enough, even though they're stupid. A deck building game is pretty hard to screw up, right? Because they have to buy the right cards, and it's easy to coach them into doing it. It's like the DC deck builder, I'll say that. Nick, do you like Shogun or Wallenstein better? I personally like Shogun. The size of the map, the shape of the map feels much better and strategic to me. I keep hearing that, but I've never played either of them, so I can't say for sure. The theme of Shogun appeals much more to me, although I don't think that it's a super thematic game other than like the artwork. So, what do you think about the Santorini Kickstarter going on? I don't know a ton about it as far as the gameplay and details. I've just seen it. I've seen the artwork. I've seen the components, and it does look great. I'm at a point now where, unless it's a cool mini or not game, I try not to let the components sucker me into whether or not I'm going to back a game. But it seems very interesting to me. It's based off of an existing game, so if it's a known quantity. I already answered the Shadows of Brimstone question. What? Are you kidding? That sucks. So I think the Quarantine here had previously mentioned the Kickstarter for a game called Zero Agents, which was like an anime style game, and that all of a sudden there was radio silence and the project makers were not communicating, and people were worried if they ran off with the money. And as it turns out, according to him now, the project creators have logged into Kickstarter many times over the past few months and have not said a single word, and it's becoming apparent they ran off with the money. Well, that does suck. I had a great idea for the April Fool's thing. I wish I had done instead. I wonder if next year it'll be too late. But if it makes it around to next year, I'll do it. It'll be pretty great. But it has to do with that. Why do you think the Manhattan Project Energy Empire Kickstarter was so slow to fund? I was really looking forward to it and sad it didn't get as much hype. Well, let's see about that. It's still got 5 days, and it made $66,000, which is over $26,000 more than its goal. I don't know, man. Don't complain. It's a lot of Kickstarter projects would still kill for that amount of money. You can't judge every Kickstarter project based off of like cool mini or not numbers, is what I guess what I'm saying. But I don't know. That game has a very niche following. I don't think it's an uber popular it's a good game. I like it. I have the original Manhattan project. I almost said Manhattan Empire. But I have it. I like it. It's a good game. But I don't think it's like super popular. And like I know that they had tried to fund an app version of the game. Maybe they're still doing it on their own. I don't know. But the app Kickstarter project failed pretty miserably. So I don't know. I don't think that I just don't think it's that popular. I think it's a very niche game. And so in that regard, $66,000 is a great number. Millennium Blades. Played it yet? Excited? No, I am not played it. I am not excited, but I'll play it eventually. Have you played Crokinole? Do you have a Crokinole board, or have you ever thought of buying one? I have not played Crokinole, and I've never considered getting one because it just looks like a silly dexterity game. And I'm not really into that many dexterity games. I like Flick 'em Up, but even that's kind of fading away a little bit. We are seeing a 15%, okay, these two questions are actually kind of linked. So now that it's April, what are the thoughts on Asmodee's changes? We are seeing, and then another question says, we are seeing a 15 to 20% increase, I assume, across the board on Asmodee North America products. What are your thoughts so far? I think it's a really shitty nightmare. Not a nightmare. A real nightmare is like people dying, but it's a really shitty thing. I don't talk about this enough. I'm so sick and tired of other media personalities completely shilling for the company and saying, "Oh, it's not that big a deal. Oh, don't worry about it. I mean, whoa, you guys get all upset about nothing. It's just so stupid." And I get really annoyed by that. I think that we in the media have a responsibility to hold publishers to account for this, but you know that most people in the board gaming media will not hold them to account for this because then you lose access. And when you lose access, it sucks, right? Like, it's sad. Oh, I won't get as many games, or I won't get the games as soon, and they won't be nice to me, and maybe they won't give me stuff and make promos for me, and then what? So, you got to be nice. You got to be nice all the time, right? And so I think that the board gaming community, the community of Board Game Geek and on Reddit and things like that, they have done their due diligence, and they did what they could. And I'm proud that so many people have actually stood up to them for that. Who knows how it's going to pan out, if people are actually going to follow through with their threats of boycotting it or whatever. But I'm happy for the community that they actually said something and didn't roll over for this. I'm disappointed in board gaming media for just saying, fuck it. So that's that. Where were you during 9/11? That's an interesting question, and I actually do remember. So I was working at the very first printing company I ever worked at. It was a company that I started working at right during high school. During my senior year of high school, I started working there part-time at night. I remember this very well. And then we moved to a new facility, and I quit. I didn't quit school. I finished school. And while I was taking night classes at college, I was still working there full-time during the day. That's how I put myself through community college. I know, just community college. But I was working there. It was that day, and I was listening to Howard Stern because I don't know why. I would never get away with this in any of my other companies, but because we were all in our own little hubs, I was working at the folder I was working at. I had my radio on. I always had my radio on, blaring Howard Stern and listening to him when he was still on terrestrial radio. And I heard him. If you ever listen to clips of him on that day, he was on the air when it was happening. He and a few other people stayed in the building in New York and continued broadcasting, telling people the details as they happened. And I remember the panic, and I remember the fear in people's voices, and I remember the uncertainty of what was happening, what was going on, and misinformation getting called in because everyone just didn't know. It was just fucking chaos, right? Some of the staff did have to leave because their families, like I think Gary went home, maybe, but he had every right to if he did because he had a wife and kids, and we're like, I don't even know what's happening right now. And it was just a whole freaky situation. So I remember that very, very well. I remember working with someone who was a couple of years younger than me at the time, because at the time I was 20. And so there was a kid that we were working with who was working there part-time who was only like 17 or 18. And he was like, I'm enlisting. Like, I'm fucking leaving work today and I'm going to enlist right now. And I think a lot of kids did that. But he didn't actually end up doing it. He was like some emo goth kid who I did not see that happening for. But it was freaky. It was really freaky. I remember that time very well. I remember the next few days of just every news channel, every radio station, nothing but news about what's going on in New York. Wow, it's just, some of you, not, I don't think I have that many young people listening or watching this, but it is freaky to think that there are, 15-year-olds who have no idea. They didn't live through this. I mean, well, hell, even if you're, 13 years old, you don't remember that the way that the rest of us do. So, super interesting. It's just sad. We know what your most asked question is, but how did you get so sexy with your double chin? But what is your second most asked question? Second most asked question. I mean, I get asked the questions about the Dice Tower all the time. So there's probably some particular Dice Tower question I get asked more than anything else. But the one I was actually thinking of was some variation of which game should I get, A or B? And I think that's the bane of every reviewer who gets asked questions. Because it's a non-question. I think people ask it with the best of intentions because they genuinely need help making a decision. And I always say, I am blessed to, in a way, I'm not blessed because I don't believe in that, but you know what I mean, fortunate to be able to have the disposable income to buy all these games, and I get a lot of games from publishers and so on and so forth, right? But having said that, I still need to buy a lot of my own games, and I know the pain of having to choose one or the other, saying, I don't have the budget for this many games, so I need to make a decision. Help me. I understand that, and yet at the same time, especially when people are asking me about two games that are both good, I have to say, you have to do your own research. You have to watch my reviews if I have them for the game, but then watch 50 other reviews. Read reviews. Written reviews are very good too. I read a lot of written reviews on Board Game Geek. So get information. Read the comments on Board Game Geek. See what people are saying. There's so much information now for any at least partially major release, and especially major releases, that you should have you should have 100% information to make your choice. So I don't get offended when people ask me that, but it's a little exasperating because I'm just like, well, I can't answer that for you. You need to come to the decision on your own, and I don't want to be held accountable if I tell you the wrong thing just because it didn't happen to meet your. While I stand by a choice that I make, yeah, that game is amazing, it may not be your cup of tea. So that's the most exasperating and frequent question, aside from those other ones. Any word on the release of the Descent app? I don't know anything in particular. I know that. So I shared the post on Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I know that they said at the time, this was in the middle of the month, that it was a few weeks away. I think in very vague terms because whenever it comes out, it comes out. So I don't think it should be too far off. I might do a review of it if I can. Nick, did you hear that Xayah is apparently getting an expansion? I did hear that. I knew that it was going to happen, but I didn't know any details. I still don't know any details. But I knew it was a thing, which is great. Xayah is a fantastic game. Well, Super Dungeon Explorer versus Arcadia Quest is something I've been asked several times, and I will address that again. Those two games, I understand that they both have small chibi anime characters, and the artwork is very similar, so I totally get why people would want to make the comparison, but as far as the actual gameplay, like what you're doing in the game, they are very dissimilar, and I can easily see someone liking one and hating the other. So, it's a weird question, but doesn't seem like it at first. Are you subscribed to Paradise? Chaz Marler has some interesting ideas and takes on board game related content. What are your thoughts? I know Chaz, we're actually friends on Facebook, although we don't really interact that much. We met very briefly at Dice Tower Con. I think that Chaz is a very nice guy, very talented. He follows what I have said earlier in this very Q&A, what is the cardinal rule for being a board game media producer in order to have fun, do well, and be and to get an audience. And that cardinal rule is be passionate about what you like to do. And he is definitely passionate. I watched his segments on Board Game Breakfast when I was still on the show. I know that sounds like a dick thing, but since I'm not on the show, I just don't have any interest in watching anything Dice Tower related anymore. But when I did watch him in the past, it was very interesting. He picked very interesting topics. I know that there was a lot of he did a lot of segments on his own like introversion and how difficult it was for him to go to conventions, even when like his friends and other board game media producers were doing it. And like the Dice Tower Con was one of his efforts to get out there and do that type of thing. And I thought that was a really interesting take on it, because it's easy to do a video that's just slamming Kickstarters. Who would do that? And it's easy to do just reviews and stuff like that. But to come at it from your own personal angle and put yourself into it, I think is a great thing too. I don't subscribe to his channel and watch it just because I don't subscribe to really any other board game media content. That's not against him at all. But I'm happy he's out there doing it. I know that someone had told me that he posted some a critical analysis of the Asmodee North America thing, and I don't know where he came down on that. So I'm not necessarily, with my earlier comments, looking down on the media in general, I don't know if he's in that. I don't know where he came down on it. But at least he's talking about it and thinking about it critically, which is more than I could say for a lot of other people who are just like, meh. So I like him, and I hope that he continues doing well, for sure. I know that he's like part of the Dice Tower now, right? I actually thought that was sad. Putting aside anything I may have to do or not do with the Dice Tower anymore, I felt like he was talented enough to just be on his own. But if he doesn't want to do that, he doesn't want to do that. So it's his choice. If you play a game with Bernie Sanders, I guess if you mean if I had a chance to play a game with Bernie Sanders, but you had to play only Exploding Kittens, would you? Yes, absolutely. I mean, come on, it's Bernie Sanders. I just answered that question. Trump prediction. You heard it here first. I don't think you're the first person saying this, but he will pivot to the center like no other candidate has pivoted to the center before. I'm sorry. Are you talking about Clinton or Trump? Oh, I did that. No. Yeah, because here's what's going to happen. They're gonna steal the nomination away from him. They may not have to steal it, by the way. He's doing very poorly in the last couple of weeks. He's gonna lose Wisconsin for sure. Just a matter of by how much. And then that might just be like Wisconsin's Wisconsin. Who gives a shit, right? But it's like the first little domino that might be pushed over. So he's doing poorly, but he still is probably going to do well enough that he might have the majority of delegates, even if he doesn't meet the magic number. And they'll probably still steal the nomination away from him and give it to I really hope they don't give it to Cruz, because nobody likes Cruz, even if they think he's a viable candidate. He's a monster. He's like a monster in human skin. But it's like when Hannibal in the show talked about, or Gillian Anderson's character told, maybe it was Hannibal that said it himself. Yeah, he was talking to her, and he was just like, "Oh my, I have to get a new human suit," because his cover was blown. And that's what I think about when I think about Ted Cruz. He's just like a monster in human skin. But they'll get Trump is. I seriously doubt they're going to let Trump have the nomination. And by the way, that's self-preservation. He is the most unelectable candidate like ever. Okay? His favorability rating across the board, we're not talking about just liberals and progressives here, across the board, he is hated. 75%, or some crazy number like that. 3/4 of women hate his guts. You cannot become elected like that. More than that of Hispanics, more than that number of Hispanics hate his guts. You cannot win an election in this country like that. You cannot. So it's self-preservation in a way to steal the election away from him. So what do you think he's going to do? He's going to run as a third party. He has broken every promise he's ever made. So that promise he made to not run as a third party, to support whoever is the eventual Republican nominee, not going to happen. And well, he just said that. He just said that he's not going to support the eventual Republican nominee. And I think he would probably run as a third party as well, even though he hasn't explicitly said it. Although by the time I'm done with this Q&A, I'll find out that he did today. And by the way, fantastic. Please do so. Please do so. Because if, unfortunately, Clinton gets the nomination for the Democratic side, we might lose too, depending on who pops up as a Republican presidential candidate. If it's Kasich, we're sunk. Okay? So, but if a third party steals votes away, like Ralph Nader times 20 from the Republican nominee, more power to Mr. Bad comb over orange skin Trump. Okay, so I love talking about politics, by the way. Young Turks, oh, here comes Bernie. I still believe in Bernie Sanders. I still think he has a path, however narrow, to the nomination. I still think Hillary Clinton has screwed up so much in the past couple of weeks that she can definitely snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, so to speak. Are you going to try Myth 2.0 knowing that the game had potential? Maybe. I could be talked into playing it, but I'm not going to put my hard-earned money into it again. I am going to try the game Merks Recon. I ordered that from my sponsor, Board Game Bliss, our amazing sponsor, who has, as Adam Bishop wanted me to remind all of you, has Millennium Blades, now that someone mentioned it, up for pre-order, as well as many other games. Like Quadropolis, I saw was up for pre-order as well. But I ordered Merks Recon from them just last night, and I'm eager to give that one a shot and see if it's any good. Do you have all the expansions and booster packs for Cards Against Humanity? What is your favorite expansion and booster pack? I think I do have everything at this point. The only thing I don't have is like the some of the promo cards. I think I have most of the PAX cards because they were gifts for me, but maybe I'm missing like 1 year of PAX cards. I know for sure I'm missing the House of Cards promotional cards. They did special House of Cards themed cards for Netflix. I don't have those. But I have almost everything else, including the stupid art pack, which was just like some dumb thing. You would never actually use it in game. So yeah, but I'm pretty sure other than that I have everything else. And what's my favorite? I don't know. All the individual packs are so very specific that you might not be into the content, but I mean, like, any of the main expansion packs are really good. People are arguing about Super Dungeon Explorer. So Rob Oren said someone was talking smack about him. Was it you, Nick? No, I like Rob. I actually just corresponded with him. Was it last week or earlier this week? He said some very nice things, and I responded back. No. I hope I didn't say something about someone else and he thought it was him. No, I think you might just be thinking of someone else. Rob lives down here. I don't think I met him in person, but no, I talked about him on another video, and he's a good dude. I'm still waiting on my Zombicide stuff to arrive in the mail. Am I the only one to encounter the delay from Cool Mini or not? Well, Wave 2 never showed up. But you should have Wave 1. Wave 1 was just the base game. They sent the base game out ahead of time just to get it out there, and they're still pumping out the expansions. Have you played Rum and Bones yet? No, I got to get to it. If freaking Star Wars Rebellion didn't take so long, I would have, because I finally had Ian to play games with one-on-one. That's a problem. 2-player games are really hard for me to get played. Is there a game like Descent or Imperial Assault, but with the Cthulhu Mythos? If there isn't, should there be? No. Because, well, okay, wait. There is Mansions of Madness. Mansions of Madness is the closest thing. Yeah, it's like that. It's one player versus all. Dungeon sort of putting out tiles and exploring, and yeah. It's the closest thing to that, and I think it's really good. Other people disagree. It's a very polarizing game. Cool Mini or Not have announced Massive Darkness, yet another co-op dungeon crawl RPG. It utilizes the zombie system. Nick, you're familiar with Zombicide. What would be your take on this? I need to know more details. If it is just a reskinned Zombicide with a few extra mechanisms, I'll be pretty disappointed in it. I would expect better from Cool Mini or Not, honestly, because they just gave us a rethemed Zombicide called Black Plague, which was very, very close to the original and probably not totally necessary, even though I like it better. So if they just do another game that just uses the Zombicide system with a few extra elements, I'll be pretty disappointed. But if it's just like literally just the core elements of Zombicide but like buried in like this huge amount of different content, well, then it would be pretty amazing, because the core system of Zombicide is simple enough and easy enough to get into and lets casual people play, and it just needs a little something extra to make it a fantastic game. And so maybe Massive Darkness could be that. We'll see. Nick, are you going to watch WrestleMania, brother? No, but I do have friends who will be watching it from beginning to end, I'm sure. And I still don't like wrestling. I liked wrestling when I was a little kid, and I completely grew out of it by the time I got into comic books. But while I don't like wrestling or watch it anymore, I have more respect for it as an art form as I get older, weirdly enough. What's up, Nick, from Perth, Australia? Well, cool. I always like to hear from international people and all the different places. Can I insult you by putting on an accent and to read the rest of this, because it just sounds so perfect? Fucking top show, mate. No, I'm sorry. I'll stop. But he says, just got back from game night with work crew. What game do you play for larger groups, 7 or more? Have a good one. Well, I've got a lot of good choices. For that, you're talking about party games, right? For the most part. Doesn't have to be, though. But I like The Resistance. I like Spyfall. I like Concepts is great. Played in teams of 2. Really, really, really great game. If you want something a little bit more meaty, I mean, you could... meatier games. Well, I like Shadowhunters too, but that's basically a borderline party game. I would actually classify that as a party game, I suppose. It's tough. I don't know if there's a lot of serious games for 8 players. Oh, Cosmic Encounter! Cosmic Encounter with all the expansions goes up to 8. I don't necessarily recommend that, but you could do it, and I've had fun doing it. Here's another frequently asked question, but I'll address it again. What are your thoughts on the legendary Big Trouble in Little China? I love Big Trouble in Little China, the original movie. I don't know what the new one that's been proposed might be like with The Rock. I think it's still that still may not happen. It's in like the planning stages, but I love the original. It's cheesy fun, great fun. I don't know enough about this yet. If it's just a tiny expansion, what's an expansion to? Aliens or Predator? I don't know. If it's a full game, how could you do that? There's not enough. There's not enough stuff. Even with Predator, I felt they were reaching, because no one even liked the second Predator movie, but they had to include that content because they had nothing else. But I like Predator, by the way. I'm not bashing the game or the original movie. And with Aliens, okay, there was more stuff, but even with Aliens, no one liked the 4th movie, and very few people liked the 3rd movie, but they had to use that. So now you're talking about one movie. You have one movie's worth of content for Big Trouble in Little China. Although people have told me there's a comic book series too, so maybe they'll use that content. But no one knows about that. So it's very weird. I love Legendary in any form, and I love Big Trouble in Little China, so of course I'm going to get this and be open-minded about it. But I don't know. I will say that I'm glad that they're at least putting it into a good system, whereas I saw like the Goonies card game on Kickstarter and was completely bored to tears. Same thing with Back to the Future. I saw like a little preview video that Eric Martin posted from the Gamma Trade Show, I think it was, for the Back to the Future card game, and I was like, I finally got some sleep for once. Oh no, did the video stop for everyone else? Okay, it's going. We're almost done anyways. I think originally Tabletop Day was meant to be what you wanted. As its popularity rose, it got out of hand. I think they're trying to find a way to fund the show since Google dropped channel projects. I don't know the details about that, but I do know that they've been having some trouble with funding. So maybe you're right. Conspiracy. Just unboxing the latest Dungeon Saga expansion, the Infernal Crypts. Have you played it yet, and what are your thoughts if you have? No, I've had it sitting on the review pile for a long time. I'm unsure of it, but I'm willing to give it a shot. What are some good intro heavyweight games? I'm thinking of exposing some of these games. What? Okay, your grammar's a little mixed up. That's fine. I'll translate. I'm thinking of exposing some people to some of these games, but I don't want to scar them with over complexity and an 8-hour game length. City of Iron is a very good one. Terra Mystica, while it is heavy, does not go for 8 hours. So it's not like Roads and Boats or Food Chain Magnate or the Splatter games, or so I hear. I think those are good choices. Empires of the Void, if you just happen to have it, but don't go hunt it down. The games of Ryan Lockett are a good mid-weight games to get you into heavier games. But Terra Mystica, heavy as it might be, is still simple enough, I think, to really, if you really want to break their cherry, so to speak. Things I wouldn't recommend just yet would be like Mage Knight. But then eventually you'd want to try Mage Knight and see how they react to it. I don't know if I want to answer that question. It's a good question, but honestly, I don't know how many times I want to. Let me read the whole thing. Okay, it's a good general interest question, so I'll answer it. As far as the Dice Tower's contributors' audience are largely middle-aged and very family-friendly, do you think they exclude a large plurality of new gamers who don't share the same worldviews? Well, first off, actually, the reason I'm going to answer this question is because I don't think this applies particularly to the Dice Tower, by the way. I think that there are several channels out there that are very popular, well-respected, channels that I personally like or respect the hosts of, who are appealing to that same core audience. You know, I do get crap sometimes when I talk a lot about how there's not enough representation in board gaming media. There's not enough women, and now there's less since Starlight Citadel's gone, or the reviews are gone, I mean. There's not enough minorities, there's not enough younger people who are doing these reviews and being passionate about it and finding an audience for themselves. It does seem to be more and more older 30s, 40-somethings with families, Christian, these types of things. And none of those things in and of themselves are bad things, by the way. I'm just saying it's a very, very, very particular type of audience. Now, it does happen to be the biggest board game purchasing segment of the hobby board game. Be very clear, the hobby board gaming market. So, in a sense, it's the market setting itself up. It's the market having the general reaction to that audience. In other words, these are the people buying that content, so these are the people you're going to see pimping out that content, to be blunt about it. And listen, I'm a white guy in my 30s, so while I talk a lot about representation in media, and I think that my channel and the way that I speak and the way that I cater my my dialogue and caters to a younger audience and a more diverse audience, I still am the face of the old school, right? And how things have always been, and how the large segment of media is. But I do think that if you really want to be honest about it, and if you are someone who talks a lot about how board gaming needs to be more diverse and how board gaming needs to have more people in it in a bigger tent and draw as many people into board gaming as you possibly can, then yes, you should go out of your way to represent those other people who are not as represented in the board gaming media and in the board gaming community. And appeal to those people. And if you're not doing that, then you just want things to stay the same way that they are, which is fine. Maybe you do. I don't like that. I have thought about ways to make my channel appeal more to those type of people without bringing on other staff, because I don't want to do that personally. It's just a one-man show, right? But I do hope that my channel, if there's anything that is unique and different about it, that it would appeal to women more, that it would appeal to black people more, that it would appeal to these other people who have sort of been shoved to the wayside, because that's not who the core market of board gaming is. But maybe it could be. So yeah, I think exclusion is a problem, but it's not just a Dice Tower problem, and that's why I think it's an important question to raise, because maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe a lot of people aren't doing enough, but the most important part is that you raise the question. Someone was being a troll in the comments and just saying a lot of rude stuff, and so I eventually ended up banning him for that reason. But he mentioned like, why are you talking about this? Like, who cares? It's not a problem. No, it's a problem. And I hate shoving my head in the sand for problems. If there's a problem, fucking face it head on. But unless you don't think that there is a problem. And if you don't think that there is a problem, the rest of us are going to keep talking about it who do think it's a problem. But I also, Addicts Gaming, I think that one of your points was that it was not just people of different ethnicities and worldviews and so on, but people who are newer to the hobby and younger gamers, I think are definitely the largest growing segment, new and younger gamers in general, regardless of their background. And yeah, I think that we need to work harder to appeal to them too. Hi Nick, will you be trying the new expansion coming out for Legends of Andor? Yes, but I'm so far behind. I really want to review Legends of Andor and the first expansion, which is a great game. I'm thinking of getting Tragedy Looper. Any hints of teaching games and on being the mastermind? Yeah, you need to know that game inside and out. It's really, really tough to get into that game at first. The mastermind has a lion's share of the work, and you can kind of throw the other players into the mix and they'll pick it up soon enough if you as a mastermind know what you're doing. But as far as like teaching the game, just do the basic, easiest game you can. Do the tutorial game. You have to. Well, it's interesting you brought this up. What do you think of adding a legacy or time stories mechanic to Marvel Legendary? Say the scheme decides who the mastermind and team is pre-selected. Crossroads cards and more flavor text is added. And depending on the outcome, it leads you towards another issue. You could do permadeath, bring in new heroes, actually follow major crossover events. I think that's an amazing idea. And I actually I don't know if you watched my review, but I brought this up in the Captain America expansion, Captain America 75th Anniversary expansion review that I did early in the week, because there's a couple schemes that are really weird in that. And there's been schemes like that in other expansion sets, like Destroy the Helicarrier or Alternate Worlds and all this kind of stuff, right? And I was like, wow, they're really taking this very basic system and like spinning it out into like this weird thing where like different cards can be used in different ways, and it's like thematically, it's like the spatial elements of the cards. And I'm like, wow, this could really blend itself well to a time stories like element. So we're on the same wavelength there. And yeah, that would be a great way to evolve the game. Think about it. If you put out sets where there were just like storyline things where you use the existing components, or even if you put out exclusive new sets that had content in them, and once you unpacked the cards and played through the scenario, you could then use the cards for just the normal Legendary game. That's a great idea. They should pay me first, just because I want money, and then jump on that idea. And I'll give you a cut of it too for reminding me. Do you miss your old review format? I missed that it took less time, but I think it was a bigger mess and longer videos. I don't think that helped anybody. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I don't like the amount of work I have to spend on the new review format, but I think it works better overall. I think it gives the videos a cleaner look. Is there a Legendary type game that doesn't have IP? I don't know why, but I hate games with IP, intellectual property. I know I'm in the minority. Well, I mean, as far as like deck building goes, there's Heroes of Metro City, which is a bad game. Some people like it. That is deck building, closer to Legendary than it is to DC deck builder. There's Sons of the Multiverse, which is not deck building, but is a cooperative card game, and fully cooperative. I actually think Sons of the Multiverse does some things better than Legendary does. But people have always said like, oh, I wish that game had the official license of the DC or Marvel on it. I would love, as much as I love the DC deck builder, I would love to live in a universe where there's Marvel Legendary, and Sentinels of the Multiverse is actually the DC card game, and have those be the DC and Marvel card games. Be amazing. But it's never going to happen, sadly. Hey Nick, is there a reason you store some games on their side while others are stacked on top of each other? It depends on the size of the box. So like any of the Eurogame sized like oblong boxes just seem to stack well on their sides. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm thinking of getting Xenoshyft, but I already have so many deck builders. Is that game worth all the hype? It's a very good game, and it's very different than many other deck builders I've played. So I think if you are pre-inclined to like deck builders, but you also like thematic deck builders, I think it's a very interesting one and very different than all the others. And so in that regard, at least, worth your time. In other words, you're not going to be thinking like, oh, if I already have this game, should I get this game? You know? How do you have the energy to muscle through the day on so little sleep? Coffee, sugar, those things don't work on me that much anymore. You know, it's interesting. I became sort of not addicted, but I led myself to believe I needed 5-hour energy drinks to keep going. Right, the official 5-hour energy drink. And the other night, the night I was doing the April Fool's thing, I was up at like 2 a.m. and I'm like, well, I'm not going to get this done for like at least another 4 hours. So sure enough, I didn't go to bed till 6. I had to be up at 2, or I had to be up at like 8 something to go to work. So I was like, well, I'm going to take a 5-hour energy drink. And it did nothing. Like, literally, it didn't pep me up at all. I was still, like, falling asleep at the computer. It did nothing. So I don't think that stuff's going to work on me anymore. I bought some hard orange soda, thanks to you. It was great. What should I buy next? I think you should buy... There's a lot of other illicit drugs. I mean, I think you should move off of legal intoxicants and go into illicit stuff. Heroin is great. No, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I may have gone too far in a few places. I don't know that I want to get into recommending alcohols, but I will anyways. I like the ginger ale that they do too, even though I don't normally like normal ginger ale, but the hard ginger ale is good. I recommend the only hard root beer I have liked so far is Coney Island root beer. That's the one that I like. Other ones I have not liked, like Not Your Father's root beer, Best Damn root beer, not good, okay? Coney Island root beer, if you can find it, I believe is the best one, but I'm curious what people think. If you like progressive politics, I suggest you search for Varoufakis. I will totally forget that, so I'll make a note of that. On YouTube and watch all of his stuff. It's brilliant. Well, okay. I always feel like I have more than enough stuff to watch via the Young Turks, especially since like Jimmy Dore has his own show now, has his own channel, and it's great. And Jimmy's great. Nick, I may be heading down to Florida in July for a few days. How would I coordinate a get-together for some games? The best thing to do would be to join my meetup group and RSVP when we have our regular game nights. So, board game Brawl on Meetup. Ever heard of Bored with Life? Any thoughts on the channel and their content? I have heard of it. I have not watched it. I'm not really into comedy around board gaming because it's always very awkward for me. I know I do comedy, so that's a hypocritical thing, but... How much would I have to back you on Patreon to get you to make calls for Bernie for an hour? A lot. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do that. I do love Bernie and I want to support him, but I just don't want to do that. Oh man, we're like late. Guys, I'm sorry. I think I have to end it. I know there's a lot more questions though. Oh, so many questions. Maybe not too many, but... Okay, Rob Warren, right at the end here, clears it up. Okay, it was definitely not me. I didn't say B for Varoufakis. Well, whatever. I'm trying to look for like one really great question to end this on. Okay, Eric brings up a good point. You don't need all of the expansions to play with 8 players, just the expansions that add the extra players. Thank you. There's 3 expansions that add the extra players. All right, I'll end on a Kingdom Death question because why not? Do you see the price of Kingdom Death dropping anytime in the next 3 years? Can a person be happy with just the base set without expansions or Kickstarter exclusives? You can be happy with just the base game, but if you're like any of the rest of us, you'll love it so much that you'll want to get the expansions eventually. But I think the base game is enough content. Do I see the price dropping anytime soon? Yeah, just because of pure market things, but that depends, right? Like if the game stays consistently selling and popular, like I don't even know if it's selling well now, but if it was, he wouldn't really have the incentive to sell it cheaper, right? But maybe production costs can come down. I mean, things just drop in price naturally. And I know it's tough. Kingdom Death, it sucks that it is so expensive. I want everyone to play that game. I want it to go higher in the ratings on Board Game Geek. I want more votes for it. I want people to because right now people can still make people who are against Kingdom Death because of moral reasons or just like, oh, it's too dark and this isn't what board gaming should be, can still make the claim that, well, look at it, it's still wallowing in the 400s on Board Game Geek. It's obviously just a niche thing where these Kickstarter drones and Kickstarter robots, someone used that phrase, like the Kickstarter bots, they're the only ones that like it. So I want the game to become more popular, to shove it in those people's faces and say, no, it's an amazing game for a lot of people. That's why we like it. So I want the game to become cheaper and more accessible. I don't like it being this like weird exclusive thing that only a scant handful of people can have the time and money to buy. But I just, it's just such a weird situation. It's a weird situation because the game is successful enough, but at the same time, Adam Poots, the designer and publisher, wants it to be, he's okay with it being a boutique item, and he needs it to be a certain price to make it worth his while, which of course, it's his passion project, but it's also a business, so you can't blame him for that. But I would say never. We'll see what happens. There's also a chance that they're going to come out with, he's talked about doing other games set in that universe that might be more reasonably priced. Who knows? So we'll see about that. But guys, we're going to go ahead and end it there just because I'm over time, and actually I had to take Honeybee back to her mom, which is sad. I've enjoyed my last week with Honeybee because I love her to death, and I'll miss her as I usually do. But c'est la vie. Things have to happen, right? So I'm going to pack up both the dogs because I think it would be cruel to walk out the door with Honeybee while Bugbear just sits and stares at us. I can't do that. It kills me. It kills me when my ex comes and picks up Honeybee from my place while I'm not there, and Bugbear just has to stay here and look forlornly out the window. I hate the thought of it. So I will pack them both in the car, take Honeybee back, and come back and maybe get some sleep, take a nap, and then I will work on some reviews for you guys for tonight. So that's the plan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We had a great audience today. I love the questions. You guys asked some really, really great questions. I'm sure I stuck my foot in my mouth several times, which is, of course, is what you all came here to see. So I totally understand that. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the weekend and a great April. Take care. Love you all.